In this video, we'll explore essential vocabulary related to renting a property. From terms like tenant and landlord to lease agreements and security deposits, we'll break down the key words and phrases you need to know when navigating the world of renting. Whether you're looking for a new home or just want to improve your English in real estate, this video has got you covered. In English, there are several words to talk about renting a property. Rent is the most general word and can be used for both tenants and landlords. Lease usually refers to a rental agreement for a longer period, like 1 year, and it often includes specific terms. Let is more common in British English and is used by landlords or agencies when they allow someone to rent their property. For example, a landlord may let an apartment while a tenant rents it. Rent. I rent an apartment in New York. She rents out her house during the summer. Cuando lo utilizamos como sustantivo, nos referimos al precio del alquiler mensual. The rent is $1,200 per month. Rent out. Significa alquilar algo a otra persona. Tú eres el dueño y se lo alquilas a alguien. Es muy habitual en inglés, especialmente informal o cotidiano. They rent out their basement to college students. She decided to rent out her apartment while traveling. Do you know if they rent out rooms in that building? A lease. Como verbo, es más común en inglés americano. Es más formal y suele referirse a contratos a largo plazo. Lo usamos para viviendas, coches o negocios. I leased a car for 3 years. The company leases office space downtown. Como sustantivo, lo utilizamos para referirnos al contrato en sí mismo. We signed a 1-year lease. Como verbo, usado por el propietario para decir que alquila su propiedad, sería el equivalente a rent out. They let their flat to students. Flat to let £800 month means that an apartment is available for rent at a cost of £800 per month. A flat is the British English word for apartment, and to let means it is available to rent. Fun fact, affordable. Es un adjetivo en inglés que significa que se puede pagar o asequible. Suele usarse mucho en temas de vivienda, comida, salud y educación, especialmente cuando se habla de acceso para personas con ingresos bajos o medios. The tenant is the person who lives in a house or apartment that they rent from someone else. The tenant must pay the rent on the first of each month. Landlord or landlady. The landlord, if male, or landlady, if female, is the person who owns a property and rents it to a tenant. The landlord is responsible for major repairs. Rental agreement. Lease. A rental agreement or lease is the contract between the tenant and the landlord. It explains the terms of the rental, like the rent amount, the duration of the stay, and the rules of the property. Always read the lease carefully before signing it. Security deposit. The security deposit is the money the tenant pays before moving in to cover possible damages. It is usually returned at the end of the rental period if everything is in good condition. You need to pay a 1-month security deposit before moving in. Guarantor. A guarantor is a person who agrees to pay the rent if the tenant cannot. Landlords often ask for a guarantor if the tenant has no income or rental history. The landlord asked for a guarantor in case I couldn't pay the rent. My parents agreed to be my guarantors for my first apartment. Utilities. Utilities are basic services like water, electricity, gas, and internet. When renting, the rent may or may not include utilities. Are utilities included in the rent? The rent is $900 a month, but utilities are not included. Maintenance. Maintenance refers to regular tasks or services done to keep the property in good condition, such as cleaning, checking equipment, or general upkeep. The landlord is responsible for property maintenance. Repairs. Repairs are actions taken to fix something that is broken or damaged in the property, like a leaking pipe or a broken heater. Tenants must report any needed repairs to the landlord. Move-in date. The move-in date is the day when the tenant officially starts living in the rented property. Our move-in date is September 1st. Move-out date. The move-out date is the day when the tenant must leave the property and end the rental agreement. Please inform the landlord of your move-out date at least 30 days in advance. We have to clean the apartment before the move-out date. Lease renewal. A lease renewal is when a rental agreement is extended for another term, usually after the original contract ends. I signed a lease renewal for another 12 months. Property for rent advertisement. A property for rent advertisement is a notice or listing where a landlord offers a property to potential tenants for rent. The property for rent advertisement listed a 2-bedroom flat with a garden for £1,200 a month. The apartment has a for rent sign in the window. I saw a rental ad online for a studio near the university. Real estate agency. A real estate agency is a company that helps people buy, sell, or rent properties. They handle the paperwork, negotiations, and provide advice to clients. I contacted a real estate agency to help me find an apartment to rent. Real estate agent. A real estate agent is a person who works for a real estate agency and helps people find properties to buy, sell, or rent. The real estate agent showed us several apartments before we found the perfect one. Evict. To evict means to force someone to leave a property, typically because they have failed to pay rent or have broken the terms of their lease. The landlord had to evict the tenants for not paying their rent for 3 months. They were evicted from the apartment after the eviction notice was issued. Eviction. Eviction is the legal process of removing a tenant from a property, usually because they have not paid rent or violated the terms of the rental agreement. The tenant received an eviction notice after failing to pay rent for several months. The eviction was scheduled for the end of the month. He received an eviction notice for violating the terms of his lease. An apartment is a self-contained living space within a building, typically rented or owned by an individual or family. She moved into a 1-bedroom apartment downtown. A flat is the British term for an apartment, commonly used in the UK to describe a self-contained residential unit in a building. They rented a flat in the city centre. A studio is a small apartment that combines the living room, bedroom, and kitchen into one open space. He lives in a studio apartment near his work. A house is a building that is designed for people to live in, typically offering more space than an apartment and may include a yard or garden. They decided to buy a house in the suburbs instead of renting an apartment. A condo is a type of apartment that is owned rather than rented. Residents own their individual units, but share ownership of common areas like hallways and gardens. They bought a condo with a beautiful view of the ocean.